good afternoon. I can say that now because it's just
Is
turned,
it afternoon?
just turned afternoon. It's Graham Coath with another My Music. In a minute, I'm going to be talking to Shrinari. Have I pronounced that correctly?
Perfect.
Brilliant. First, we're going to have a little advert, and then we'll come back after this.
I need to get going, Mel. See you later.
You now feel liberated because we've watched that advert. Sylvia?
Yeah, hi.
And Raphael, is that how?
Raphael, correct. Yeah.
Thank you for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having us.
What does Shrinari mean? What's the meaning behind that word?
So Shrinari is the name given to us by a Zen Shinto priest who I happened to live with in a Zen temple in California when I was much younger. So when I was about 20, I met this Zen Shinto priest. I was actually giving massages in a spa, Japanese spa, and he was sitting in the foyer, and I just was like, wow, who's he? He had a very holy presence, and he was like sitting, meditating, cross-legged, and he just looked like the Buddha. So I was like, I need to meet this guy. And then we became really great friends. And then eventually I moved into the temple that he was the head priest at, Jikoji, Temple of Compassionate Light. And I lived with him there and tried my best to become a Zen nun. Which didn't last that long.
Okay.
But it was a great experience, and then it was good while it lasted. And and as he was actually dying of cancer. This is like fast forward, and basically as he was dying, I said, I know this seems really, really trivial, but I really want you to choose my band name. At the time, I was envisaging a band rather than a duo, and I was just like, does it sound really awful to ask you to choose that while you're like on your deathbed? And he said, are you kidding? That is my cosmic play. And he spent 3 days contemplating it and then came back with the name Shrinari. And he told me, never tell anyone what it means. He broke it down for me as to why he came up with it. But he told me, there's a power in this. And I really don't want you ever to tell anyone why.
So we can never find out.
Never find out. It's a big mystery, like a lot of other things.
But it does have a meaning in Sanskrit, which is holy woman. But that's a known meaning because it's
but
that's not the meaning.
That's not the meaning why it was given. And Lucia was very kind to say it was given to us, but I wasn't in the picture back then.
Yeah, it's true.
I only came in a few years later.
Okay. But do you know what? That beats most bands' name picking stories by a long way, because most of them we were sitting around,
we had 50 names and
we
had 50 beers.
Kicking a football around one afternoon and came up with this. That's a much better story. Okay. So why did music start for both of you?
Wow. Well,
shall I start?
Yeah, do you want to start?
So music started when I was a kid, and I was the youngest of 5, and particularly my older brothers had big music collections of Spanish music of the 80s and some Anglo-Saxon music as well from Britain and America. And I just I don't know, it was a very, I just got into it really, really like unconsciously and deeply, to the point that I often say this when I speak about those years, that I knew lyrics by heart that I couldn't possibly understand at that age.
Yeah.
And I would sing along to songs like from beginning to end, sometimes even making up words that, because I didn't understand the words, it would sound like something that wasn't quite what was said in a way, and I would just sing in my own way, in a way. And that's really the beginning. and then the beginning of making music is teenage years, a lot of emotional trouble, and just the feeling that I needed a safe space. And for me, music was it. It was a passion, and I wasn't into school. I wasn't successful at anything at all, but music was this passion. I felt this really strong pull, and everybody started like picking up guitars and playing a few chords here and there, and one day I thought, I think I can do that. It doesn't look that difficult, and I just that was it.
And was it difficult?
Well, the first, I chose not the most straightforward song to learn for a beginner. I chose Light My Fire by The Doors. So, but the good thing about that is that I got the bar chords out of the way to start with. So
yeah, sure.
The first couple of weeks, everybody were running away from me. Every time I picked up a guitar, like people would just like fly away.
Yeah.
But then after a few weeks going on, no, but not just heard these one, is that it sounds horribly bad. You haven't quite got that. And I was like, no, just patience, what's this space? And after a few weeks, I was like, okay, I got that one. And then because I started with a hard one, then everything else was like, in terms of rhythm guitar, everything else was kind of like easy in a way.
Yeah. What about for you, Lydia? Where did music start for you?
So for me, my dad's a really beautiful songwriter, and he's and a singer. And so when I was young, we grew up in the middle of the countryside, and we didn't really it was in the middle of nowhere in Hampshire. And so my dad wrote a lot of songs, and then I would just do all the backing, and he had bands kind of coming in and out of the house, and rehearsals that I attended, and I'd just like sit there singing along. So it's just been what I've grown up with. And we had all kinds of instruments, like every kind of instrument in the house. My dad really liked to collect like random and weird instruments. So I was always like trying different things. And then we had this 4-track Porter studio, and we emptied the larder of food, and then me and my dad set up a recording studio. My mum was like, what do you do? And so I don't even know where those recordings went, but we were recording together when I was like 7, and I just was like, yeah, this is what I like, and so it just continued from there, really.
Yeah, no, I've heard similar stories so many times. In terms of, you said Spanish music from that period. What sort of songs are we talking about, or artists are we talking about?
I'm not sure your audience would be familiar with them.
No, well, that's why we want to know.
Right. So we're talking about rock and pop, and there's this rockabilly. There's 2 rockabilly projects from that era that were really, really big. And one of them was a guy called Loquillo, which means little crazy. I mean, his logo was the woodpecker,
right?
From the woodpecker from the 50s. Yeah. And he had funnily enough, he had the Southern Confederate flag behind it. Nobody understood what that meant at all. I mean, it was like looks cool, it's kind of rock and roll, but whatever. And he began doing a lot of covers of famous 60s and 70s rock and roll, from America, and 50s as well. And then some of his bandmates started writing music for him, and then he started singing. He's really not a great singer, but he was a very good frontman. Yeah. And he's still to this day, he's one of the biggest rock acts in Spain. And then there was this other band called Los Rebeldes, which is the Rebels, and that guy had a much better voice, but I think he basically screwed it up by screaming too much on stage. So he hasn't made it as far as the other guy did. But I think musically the other one was a better musician. He also played guitar. So those 2, and then there's this band called Gabinete Caligari. It's a beautiful pop rock band, beautiful songwriting and more. And there were a lot of arrangements on that one, on that project, because they partnered with a producer from Uruguay who is a keyboard player, but also a string arranger, and there were wider arrangements. It was more kind of, you could say more Beatles oriented, although they don't sound like the Beatles, but it was more kind of like in that vein. In fact, one of their early 90s albums they recorded in London. And then there was this other really, really good project called Radio Futura, the future radio. That's the meaning of the. And what I realized, there's you know Duncan Bridgman of One Giant Leap?
Yeah.
So he actually was part of the production team of one of their 80s albums. And I was really surprised to see that. And a really, really famous album and a really famous songs that I used to listen to when I was a kid. And when I was looking at Duncan's, resume, I realized, oh, wow, he worked with with this big band from back then.
Well, you see, it's these little details that we really love on this program. Okay, you know, and when you say, "Oh well," you know, people may not know it. That's what we really want to know.
No, that's cool. That's
yeah,
really good.
That's what we really want to know. I mean, I mean, it would be awful if we all came on here and said, "Well, our reference points are Celine Dion or Elton John."
yeah.
Well,
she
we've
definitely
all heard
wasn't
of
on my
them.
reference point.
No, but you know what I mean. Where we've all heard those reference points. Okay, we want to know. We want to know the most obscure reference points. And what about for you, Lucinda?
As a child, like Dusty Springfield, Alison Moyet, Sade, the Beatles as well. My dad, we had like, you know, a big record player and all, like loads of vinyl. And so when I was a kid, I was left to my own devices quite a lot. And so I would just like get records out and play them. And yeah, the Beatles, but Dusty Springfield was like my favorite, I think.
Yeah.
Just loved her. I still love her now.
What is it about Dusty's voice for you?
Oh, it's just got this tone to it, this quality that just, I don't know, it just gets me right here, you know. It's just like, it's just, very
gutsy,
and very powerful, very powerful.
Yeah,
as well,
powerful but quite of the heart as well, I feel.
No, absolutely. Nothing quite like Dusty. There you go. Well, there's a reference we do all know. Dusty Springfield.
Yeah.
Joni Mitchell too.
I never really listened to her that much when I was younger. Like now, I'm getting more into her. But yeah, like.
Oh, do you see? That's quite often the case with Joni.
Yeah. It's funny because everyone talked about her a lot, but I don't really remember listening too much.
No. Well, I bet your dad listened to some great stuff as well.
Yeah. He's got a very wide music taste, and
quite eclectic.
Very eclectic. Yeah, he's a really interesting man.
Yeah, and then in terms of getting you writing, what got you writing music?
Me.
Other than that little family scene writing music. When did you step out on your own and start writing music?
So basically, my granddad was a poet, and so I started writing poems. Quite inspired by my granddad. I was like 4 when I started writing poetry, and then my school noticed that I was particularly good at it, and so they asked me to recite my poetry every week in assembly. And then all the kids really didn't like me very much for it because I was getting a lot of attention for my poetry, and they're like, "You didn't write that." And I was like, "I did," and it was really upset me.
Iambic pentameter was before they did.
Totally. No, my granddad was really strict about rhythm, which in some ways was quite limiting for me because he was quite traditional English, like about the way he wrote. And so like I didn't get that kind of more natural flow because every time I would write like that, he's like, "No, it has to be A B A B, or it has to be A B C A, or it has to be." He would give me all the rhyming patterns, and it was like this, or this, and that was it.
And that's your mum's dad, not your
dad's dad. That's my mum's dad, exactly. But yeah, I started writing, and I just loved it. And the more I wrote, the happier I felt. So I started keeping a journal, and I would just write for hours every day. Like that was my thing. I actually did a degree in songwriting that I finished last year in London. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. What's that like, doing a degree in songwriting?
It was fantastic because I was just trying to find. I just was like, oh, maybe I should go to university because I never went. I traveled a lot when I was young and kind of just went off in different directions, and so I thought maybe I should do that now that my kids are quite big. And it was amazing. And I started doing a degree in creative musicianship, but it was too techie for me. Like Raphael's quite techie, and he does all the production, the engineering side of things as well. And I just don't like that. I find it really overwhelming, and I just want to be creative. So I started with that and then changed to the songwriting degree. And I always like just write, like I never think about how do I write. And it was so interesting getting exercises to do and being told, write from this angle or with this structure, and at first I was like, oh, this is really horrible to be told how to write. But as soon as I started, I came out with stuff I would never have thought of. Like, it brought a whole new well of creativity about for me. And the album that we're coming out with on the 24th, I think, of November, is a lot of that material that I wrote and Rafa produced, and then wrote parts to, and we made this whole album. Most of the songs actually are from that little era.
That's really interesting, because, you know, a lot of people would think that if you go and learn how to do something that's creative, that over structure, if you like, or that putting a structure around it would stifle the creativity. But for you, you found it quite liberating.
Yeah, in a really surprising way. Like, I wasn't expecting that at all. I was like, wow.
I think it's about finding the balance.
Yes.
You know, because it can be stifling. It can definitely be stifling. And at times I would say that it was stifling for Lucidia. She felt like
the essays,
a little bit diminished by some, that too, but some people's perspectives as to what is viable commercially.
Yeah.
And the importance of commercial viability over creative value and artistic value, you know.
Yes.
That's there's always a tension between those two.
Yeah.
I mean, not all, you know. They're two different perspectives, and different people have different attitudes towards.
Yes, sometimes
good
music gets commercially
accepted.
Yeah,
absolutely.
More so, I think. Sometimes. I think recently there's been some pretty good stuff coming out, hasn't there? I mean, I've been noticing more and more. But yeah, it was a little challenging sometimes. With some of the teachers were just very much like very, you know,
right about sneakers and jeans
and you know, coke and weed and whatever, and then that was a good song, and then my kind of spout of all kinds of wild ideas was like, they said, you're very esoteric, and I said, that's a real compliment, thank you so much, because
yes, thank you, that's what I was going for, thank you very much.
That means I'm on the inner circle, like based on like the Greek history.
Absolutely. So you mentioned there's some good stuff coming out at the moment. Is there anything you're both listening to at the moment that you really, you know, share as a that's great, we really like that?
I am absolutely in love with Black Pumas. They're not like, I mean, their album is already 2 years old, but they are incredibly amazing. I find them, because they have these really authentic soul sound. I think I don't know if you're familiar with them. Basically, it's a street musician called Eric Burton, which is almost Eric Burden, which is kind of funny coincidence. He from California. He moved to Texas, was busking in the street, and got spotted by a friend of a producer who had already won a Grammy with a Latin rock band a few years prior. He connected them, and they created this project called the Black Pumas, and I think I'm absolutely in love with what they do. They're so good.
That's the way to go. That's the way to go.
I've been like listening to quite a lot of like random and new things recently. Like the other night, we discovered this group. I think it's called Grace and the Victory Riders, and I was just completely blown away by it. And then what was that other cover of The Sound of Silence that we heard? That was
I didn't pick up the name. It was
I didn't pick up the name. But that Grace and the Victory Rider, that was like one of the new gold discoveries for me recently. And we had an amazing gig this weekend actually in Wales. We did two gigs in Wales this weekend. We just got back late last night, and there's like a DJ section where they played like the most amazing music. Like, it was just like being fed on every level. It was so satisfying.
Also very quirky and obscure.
Yeah, really quirky and obscure. Yeah,
it was really beautiful. I think that cover of The Sound of Silence, if I'm not wrong, that was done in the 70s. For the sound of things, to me, that sounds 70s. I may be wrong.
No, I thought it was really modern. I had no idea. It was so incredible. The arrangement on it. I'll have to look.
It had these piercing violins.
And her voice
kept on coming in. It was the most counterintuitive cover of Sound of Silence you could imagine. It was very jazzy and kind of modern classic intertwined. It was
Lovely.
just wow. It really
Yeah.
blew us
Blew
away.
us away completely.
What a
I
beautiful
love things
time.
that really deconstruct songs and
Yeah.
take them to a completely different place. I don't know whether you've ever, this might be not your bag at all, but I don't know whether
Uh-huh.
you've ever heard the album of cover songs that Stina Nordenstam did, for example.
I haven't.
No,
Check it out though.
check that out. They are. I like to leave people with these little bits that they
Uh-huh.
can go and check out. There you go. So that's something for you. So talk to us about your music you're making now. When did that come about?
We actually have two projects. It's kind
You
of
have 3 projects.
we're really
You're so greedy.
It's really, it's just the whole thing of like Raphael writes his songs, I write my songs, and then even though we both play a big part in each other's songs, especially him musically on mine, because he's he did a degree in jazz. Whoops, there's my headphone gone. Sorry. He did a degree in jazz, and so he has like a lot of musical sophistication that maybe I haven't developed or don't even know if I will develop. And so yeah, but we play a big part in it. But he has his stuff that comes out under the name Sweet_Medicine. It's underscore, right?
Oh, that's the
Sweet Medicine.
So the name of that project officially right now, for the time being, is Raphael and Lucidia's Sweet Medicine.
Yeah, so he's just
and it all started because around 2015, I really wanted to put out some songs of mine that I didn't have the means to record properly. And Lucidia was horrified by the idea that I would put out live recordings just done with a Zoom recorder of what we were doing at the time. And I was like, I just want to put them out. SoundCloud is a free platform. People are putting that kind of stuff out all the time. I don't want to wait until I have the money to record these properly, because I don't know if I will. So I just want to record it now the way we're doing it, put it out, and some of those tracks just got quite a bit of attention at that time. And I have a little platform in SoundCloud under the name Sweet Medicine. And then later on, we started debating: shall we abandon Sweet Medicine, abandon Shrinari, and just call ourselves Raphael and Lucidia? Because most people that see us play, they know us by name. So we thought that may be the way to go. But then it just became clear that some of the things we write have a certain identity, and some of the things have a certain other identity. And even though when we play live, we play a mixture of everything every time, when it comes to the publishing side of things, it kind of makes sense to keep it that way.
Yeah.
So Sweet Medicine and Shrinari are our 2 main projects. And then there was this one track that Lucidia wrote while she was in university.
Oh yeah, that was a bit more like me attempting to take on all the ideas of the teachers that were trying to push things in a more commercial direction, which is under the name of Illustra, which is my middle name, ILLUSTRA. But that's but the Shrinari,
because it has more of an electronic dancey,
not quite dancey. But
and it's got a beat.
It's got a beat.
No, it's not time for an argument. Okay.
There's always time for an argument.
but the album that's coming out.
It's dancey depending upon how you dance.
Depends on how you dance. It's true.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. But the Shrinari album, that is the thing that we're a thing that I'm really, really excited about right now, which is coming out on the 24th. We had as a single, The Gift just came out on that's like the first single that's coming out on the album. The second single's coming out on the 3rd of November. And then the whole album's coming out on the 24th of November. And that's like, we've put so much into that, haven't we? It's just been a lot of work. And it's got some great arrangements on it as well. Some fantastic musicians. And
we're very excited about it.
I'm really excited about it. I am.
Now, we never play any music on this show.
Oh, cool.
For 2 reasons. One is the MCPRS, etc., would be an absolute nightmare. The second, the second is because it makes people curious. But just what would you say? What would you say if people wanted to know a flavour of what it sounds like? What would you say it sounds like?
Ooh, like the album or the single?
Yeah, the album. Yeah,
it's very eclectic.
It's so eclectic.
Very, very
great.
Eclectic.
That's a word. Okay.
It's going to be a journey from one track to the next. It's like, ooh, now we're here. Ooh, now we're here.
Yeah, and there's different elements that come into it. It starts off like it starts off quite still and slow and kind of ornate and beautiful with like beautiful violin and cello, and then it kind of moves. It kind of moves in. There's like some horns on the next track, but quite mellow horns, and then the track builds like that. It's like a journey in itself, really, with different instrumentation, and it definitely gets more intense in the middle, and then it kind of goes into a slightly more electronic landscape, and then ends with the song "The Gift" that's already out on all major platforms, which is like a slightly gospel R&B kind of soulful song, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it's lyrically
Yeah, with a
driven.
beautiful video.
Like each track, we've done what the lyrics demanded, I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's partly why it's very much kind of like postcards, you know, different places.
Because the main thing's always been the message for me anyway. For me, the main thing has always been like, I've had this clear message that comes through the pen when I write, you know, which often involves the environment. And since I was so little, that's been such a deep cause for me. When I first learned that they were chopping down the rainforest in the Amazon when I was at school, and it provides a third of the world's oxygen, I was like, what? Like, why would they do that? And it's always been like a cause that deep in my heart and really driving me forward. And which is why like some of the proceeds of everything we do goes towards like Amazon Watch, and also little indigenous tribes and stuff that we have come into contact with as well. And yeah, so that's the main thing, and that's why the video of "The Gift" is this little eco project, because that song actually was inspired by a tree nearby that people were filling with litter. And so we decided we wanted to empty the rubbish. And then I had the idea, because I wrote that song about the tree, I was like, oh, well, that'll be the video. And it was a kind of quirky idea. I was like, will that work? Like, I haven't really seen a video like that. But then.
So you did the work and you made the video all at the same time.
And made the video in the same time, and involved my children, which was so nice because they're teenagers, and you know, they're not the kind of kids that really walk around picking up litter all the time. And I think it was I was so happy that they got involved, and like they didn't like ask for anything back, and they just got into it. And I just felt that was such a healthy practice for them.
So if people want to find out what the tree video is all about, that's out.
That's
now.
On YouTube. Yeah,
that's on YouTube. You can go and find that.
Shrinari, The Gift.
And
the official, it says official.
There's a Shrinari topic channel that was opened by the distributor, and that's not where you look, because that's a still image through the whole video. There's one that says official, and that's the one that has the video.
Well, it's been absolutely wonderful meeting you both today. I look forward to hearing the album when it comes out in its entirety. And the best place to hear your music is where?
So we've got Bandcamp, we've got the ones that are already released under Shrinari are on all the major platforms, and we have other albums there from the past that are actually worth checking out as well. Really nice ones.
If it comes to sound quality, so you say the best places for audiophiles, the best places really are Bandcamp, SoundCloud. Bandcamp, you can also purchase the music, and there's this streaming platform called Qbuzz, Qobuz. It's French, and they stream at as high quality as you want, or as high quality as the artist uploads.
There you go.
So you can stream it at CD quality or even higher. With some artists, they provide the streaming at like 96 kilohertz, and you know whatever it gets.
Is
it silly.
On that platform?
It is. Yeah, they distribute it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Do you know what I've loved about this interview so much is that I think both of you have learned a little bit about each other during the process.
We're always learning about each other,
which you didn't know before. I could see it in the looks that were going for. I didn't know that. I did not know that. So now, as you go and enjoy a little bit of downtime, make a cup of tea, and relax after this interview, I think some conversations are going to continue. Great. You're going to go and try and find those. You're going to go and find those Spanish albums now and put some on. Yeah.
And the one you recommended.
Absolutely. It's been an absolute pleasure meeting you both. Thanks so much for joining me on My Music.
Thank you so much for inviting us. Have a lovely day.
Thank you. And you. Bye for now.
Bye.